Thanks for letting us use your studio.
Oh,
By the
it's
way,
on.
nice Christmas, nice
Thanks.
Christmas hat.
Thanks.
Um,
And my palette knife.
yeah, very nice. Yep, that's good. I thought it would be good for us to talk over business cares. This is for Volunteer Corner, but there's hardly any aspect of this business cares that isn't volunteer. I know you help out, right? But I think of people like Wayne Dunn, who heads it up, and he's done it, for over
25 years.
25 years,
Yeah.
volunteer.
Oh, totally unpaid.
People
yeah.
like Mike Evans, the treasurer from our food bank, he's done it in that whole time as well, volunteer.
Volunteer. Yeah.
You have hundreds and hundreds of people that are going to go out this coming weekend for a grocery store weekend for business cares, all volunteer, right? All from all these different places. I just think it would be tough to do Volunteer Corner without that. I know it's the Christmas season, but this is one of those times I think when volunteers come together, as they do in a food drive, to really push the food bank over the top. But I thought it might be helpful for people to understand a bit about business cares. I can remember Jane got the Woman of Distinction Award, and many of us went as a board. We went all around the table to support her. And later that evening, I ended up talking to Ed Holder.
In the bathroom.
In the bathroom, that's right. And we talked away about getting businesses involved. And so he decided he wanted to try to do something for it. So Business Cares got going. He contacted Wayne. And they started getting all these business groups together to start to do it. And I remember thinking, I didn't know Wayne too well. I knew Ed very well. But I thought this could be pretty interesting. And in the first, we were all thankful, above all, that you got the award that night. But I think we began to realize something was happening here. And I can't remember, Jane, it was 25 years ago. I can't remember how many businesses were involved in the first couple of years. Do you remember?
No, I don't. But
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, the secret has been that it has been 25 years.
Yeah.
That they started, and it did start a bit smaller, but it grew and it grew and it grew and it grew and it grew.
That's right.
So.
And both Ed and Wayne had both been leaders at the Chamber of Commerce over the years, so they had really great credentials in the business community. So they got it going, and the next thing you know, businesses start raising funds and money. At the start of Business Cares Drive, and Business Cares is only for December. But when does it usually start? Is it the beginning of December or when?
Well, it officially starts the first weekend in December, so it's kicking off on.
That's the grocery store.
That's
weekend?
the grocery store weekend. So this
Yeah.
year, that's in the November 30th. The official kickoff is this year, November 28th. But that date kind of fluctuates depending upon when the grocery store weekend is.
Yeah.
But to be honest, many of the businesses, and we've got a couple of really great groups of businesses to get together. They're actually thinking about this all year round, and they're planning, and they're starting to raise money, and they're doing all sorts of things all throughout the course of the year. It really culminates around Christmas. And the committee, this runs because of Wayne, but it runs because there's a volunteer committee.
Of how many people?
I'd have to ask Wayne specifically, but is it 25, 30?
Okay, yeah.
It's been different people, different years, and every year has been great. People come and go, businesses come and go, some of those kinds of things. And I think that all of those folks help to coordinate and do a lot of work. So they're either working on the grocery store weekend, they're working on the Be a Fan, Bring a Can, which is happening at the London Nights. There's, and I'm going to forget something, I know. So if I do, there's Tampon Tuesday event, which is happening at the factory this year. Or in the building of the factory. It's happening in a spot up above. And Golfers Care is back.
Yeah.
It's taken a bit of a hiatus isn't the right word, but during the pandemic things kind of happen back and forth. So that plus just all the work that each of the businesses do, it's pretty amazing.
It's all these kind of spin-offs or offshoots, if I can talk about that. Like Golfers Cares, you talk about. That's a huge part of it. But I also think of things like the Home Builders Association and the London District Construction Workers. Those are two huge groups with lots of members, and they get into this competition with one another. And every year, the home builders win. And going into it, everybody kind of knows that they will.
They've been at it longer.
They've been at it longer. But watching the competition between and the friendliness of it and stuff, it's great. But you end up with a lot of these different groups that normally might not have all come together, but they are doing it for this. So I think that that's pretty great. But this committee then sits down and then they begin to reach out. But so you start getting businesses to sign on, to commit. Now, many of them have already done it in advance, or they've done it for years, and you can count on them. But then you've got the problem of there is the collection. So we know about grocery store weekend. That's a big one. That's a public one. That's a very media hectic one. But then there's all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And so how does the food get picked up in those different things?
It's incredible in terms of the network. So for instance, you bring up those organizations, LDCA, the London
Home
District,
Builders.
and the Home Builders, LSBA, and Golfers Cares, but now there's like Accountants Cares and Insurance Cares and Western Cares and Lawyers Care, and there's all like bankers, and all of those things are really getting going as well. So there's all of these happening. The logistics of it's pretty amazing, to be honest. For instance, there is one of the member of the committees, Allie, and I want to call her Allie. I can't remember her married name, Allie McCowan, but she takes care of all the volunteers, and that's Business Cares Weekend plus others. We've Jamie Montero really organizes. She's a nurse at the at LH the hospital. She organizes. All of the lists in terms of the business and the registrations, and it's really important that businesses register so we can pick them up. And then basically when they register, they will get a selection in terms of when the pickup is, and then Campbell's Brothers,
they help us with all the trucks.
Well, they help us with the pickups. Those last few days before it comes to the food bank, and then the logistics of if you're talking grocery store weekend, and I can't again remember the full number of stores, but between 35 and 40 stores. There's like so many stores.
Grocery stores, yeah.
Bennett and like all of these groups are kind of coming together, and it's just totally amazing.
Yes. So I think my question was, Campbell's Brothers helps with the trucks and everything. Well, so people are raising food at their businesses or other things. Some donate money, so we're able to get food that way. Yeah. But that food then gets picked up at the different places, and it gets taken to where? Because it doesn't come to the food bank.
No. So the Agriplex, it gets taken to Western Fair, and then it's kind of the whole central place. There's tons of students from CCH that help to organize and keep it all stacked, keep it all leveled properly, and then after it's done and the event is over, it comes to the food bank. And so on
that's a big morning.
December 19th is when it's actually going to come to the food bank, and we don't have space to take it all. The folks at the food bank triple stack it, put it in our aisle so that we start sorting it, and then we finish getting the rest of the skids by mid-January. And then the food bank's main job obviously is to take the food and then sort it. And then we sort it, and then it becomes part of the system. We use it to help other agencies. We use it for ourselves, and of course, a big component of this is money. That a lot of businesses donate money, and so part of the pickup is going around and picking up checks and doing that as well. And so a lot of the businesses bring them down, and that money gets turned into food. It gets turned into milk and eggs. It gets turned into helping the 40 different agencies that we're helping in terms of. Christmas programs and programs throughout the year, and it's just there's about 70 different programs that actually goes to support. It's pretty amazing and wonderful. So that's all of this network of people donating to the food bank, and then all of so Business Cares and ourselves are kind of the conduits, and then we send it out to this whole network across the city in terms of folks that need it.
It's interesting. It's all being collected around the city, put into kind of the separate place, the Agriplex. And then on that morning, it comes to the food bank. We have to give a shout out to Brian, who's our warehouse manager there. He has to figure out, we take pictures of this for the media, right? And it's a whole warehouse full of groceries. And somehow Brian has to fit all that into our smaller warehouse, stack it up at various levels, and then he's got to get all of our volunteers together over the course of the next weeks. We don't just give it out as these massive boxes, right? It has to be sorted and put into smaller boxes, so on and so. It's a massive operation, but it's volunteer at organizing, it's volunteer at collecting, and it's volunteer largely at just the putting it all together and distributing it, which is great. But would you say, because this must be right, we didn't do a total, but it's millions and millions of pounds of food over the 25
Oh,
years?
for sure, and millions of dollars worth of food, for sure.
Yeah,
You know, it's amazing what they do, and it obviously helps us. We don't have a fund development. I mean, I've said this a lot. We don't fundraise.
No, we
And
don't have a fundraiser on our board.
no, I mean, we've got Wayne and Business Cares, and
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah.
They actually do all of that work,
Yeah.
and that allows it to remain sort of still grassroots and volunteer. And you know, and so when people give us money, it goes to the things it's meant to. And I think that's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of, part of me is like, oh man, I'm sorry we started talking about people, because I know there's so many of them
know.
that I miss.
Yeah.
But I think it's important. All of these folks and just do so much work. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you're much more involved with that than I am.
Yeah.
I'm out in the community. You're busy working with Wayne and Mike Evans to try to arrange this stuff. But it's like organized chaos, right? In Wayne's head, it's not.
No,
Wayne knows exactly
he knows,
who he's
he
got a
does.
phone.
It's
He's
pretty
got this-
amazing.
yeah, he's quite something. But for the rest of us, we watch it all just magically all come
Yeah.
together, and it's really great. But the point I think that's important here too is, can you imagine if you're a food bank and you're helping 6,000 families a month? Your numbers are up 91% over this time 2 years ago, right? Well, there's 40 other agencies that we're helping, and you're sitting there looking at all of this increasing all the time. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of worry too as to how things are going to be. And then all of these businesses pull together, and it's kind of like Santa's workshop. You know, you all of a sudden come and you see this whole assembly line of things going on. I mean, our volunteers come in and they watch that warehouse, and they know the people coming in for help, and they kind of wonder, boy, I hope we have enough. Hope we have. And then Business Cares come down that morning with all of their stuff, and all of a sudden the whole warehouse is full of it. I think that what that does to the spirit of the staff at the food bank, but especially of the volunteers, this business community that's been working away, who the volunteers largely don't see, who are down there, suddenly wake up one morning and it's like the most massive Christmas tree in the world, and underneath it are all these unbelievable amounts of food.
Yeah.
And what it does to our volunteers, and what it does to us, to know that regardless of what the challenge has been, you know, in part thanks to Business Cares, we've been able to meet that challenge. Does it give you that sense of confidence? It does me.
Yeah, I mean, for sure it does, because it's not, you know, the largesse in that sense is huge that day. And you see, you know, when somebody gives a can of tuna or gives $20, you actually see how that all comes together. And I've really appreciated Business Cares. Wayne in particular really puts the same amount of value on somebody who's donating the $20 or a kid who does a birthday party as the business who gives 10,000 or 50,000. Like, it's all really necessary, and it's the motive that matters. So it all comes together and you can see it, but then it's the gift that keeps giving.
Yeah,
So
that's
you
right.
know 6,000 families a month, we're buying all the time in terms of the food, and that money helps to then sustain us and sustain the other agencies.
And supplement the supplies, right? If we're
Yeah,
down
for
on
sure.
something, we can catch up on it.
Yeah, and that's kind of how we do it now in
Yeah.
terms of, so we've got the ability to buy throughout the whole course of the year, because of that,
Yeah.
and not kind of have to, you know, worry in the context of, is food coming in. And I think it's been great. And there's yeah, the volunteers see the food and see the coming through, and then at Christmas time they just marvel. I think it's pretty amazing.
Something else you need to know about Business Cares as well is that there have been relationships that have developed that have been gone past what you normally would think. So, for instance, a good example would be in the pandemic. You know, we had the greenhouse, we put that up, and then we realized that other neighborhoods who can't all get on the bus and all come together because of the pandemic were wanting these greenhouses as well. So we figured out a way to put greenhouses in neighborhoods, and it was great. And it was largely faith groups that took them because they could. But I remember going to Wayne Dunn and saying, Wayne, these greenhouses cost about $1,000 each, right? They're 10 by 20. The churches can run them, so on and so forth. We didn't want the food to come to the food bank. We wanted it to stay in neighborhoods. And before I could even finish the sentence, Wayne said, Business Cares can do that. Like Business Cares will take care of that. And just like that, they covered the cost of the greenhouses. Now, that's not part of the December program, right? That was just something that they did. And then there's Community Refresh, right? Which is us, getting surplus food from grocery stores and having to sort all that out. But what did Business Cares do about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, two things in that context is some of the money, I shouldn't say some, all the money that got raised for the vehicle that we needed for that came from Business Cares. And that was like a refrigerated van, which is what we needed. And then the cost of running that throughout the whole course of each year comes from that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's great. So now Business Cares isn't just buying food and helping with the one-off programs like the greenhouse projects. They're helping to run the programs that actually help bring the food in on a consistent basis, and I think that's probably one of its outstanding legacies, as far as it makes sure those things keep coming and the food keeps coming in because of it. Yeah,
I mean, the way we got through the pandemic, so much of that was because Business Cares was right there and helped us move along with that. And then there's the personal side. I mean, Wayne Dunn, his daughter volunteered at food banks and she loved it. She loved helping the homeless people. But Allison passed away a few years ago, and it was hard for Wayne and Diane and their family. But just how that Business Cares community came together, we were part of it. We were friends. Yeah. But something beautiful came out of that at the food bank, and what was it?
Well, I shouldn't say a couple of things. Obviously, the relationship is great, but some of the volunteers have always said we need a place to go hang out. So we talked about putting in a garden where people could go and have a bit of time. But there is a memorial garden at the food bank but it's actually, the whole back is now called Allison's Garden, because it's just it's the greenhouse, it's the growing, it's sort of the whole thing that's there.
Composting,
composting.
It's amazing. Raised beds.
The garden in particular is like a pollinator garden. There's rocks, there's a bench, there's a place to go in terms of just kind of sitting and being, and so that whole the whole thing with regards to trying to draw the bees in to help pollinate all of the food and everything else that's out there. But it's just the whole back of the food bank has just it's blossomed over the past little while, and that's been pretty great.
But it's got Allison's picture on it, right? And we call it Allison's Garden in memory of all of that. But Wayne also saw to it that he got in a company to do the irrigation system.
That's true. That's right.
Not just for that little part of the garden, but for the whole back. I mean, it was pretty amazing, and I think that this is not a kind of collaboration arrangement that we try to do every December. This is worked into a deep and a two-way kind of relationship that is worked out. I understand that Wayne is the key to it, but we know so many businesses and so many business leaders. We knew them, some of them, before Business Care started. We know way more now, right? But it's a remarkable thing, I think, because of the relationships. You don't expect that. You just see something so big and massive. But I think of the grocery store managers, the people in the media who come out and help on grocery store weekend. I mean, we see it because it's going on for 25 years. You see the same people this time next year. It just goes on and on. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that when they talk about businesses and they talk about business growth, it's on the strength of the relationships. Right? So, and it's the same thing within the charitable industry. It's on the strength of the relationships that you have. Without those relationships, it doesn't go. Without the trust, it doesn't operate as well. So I think that's been the success of it over all of these years.
Yeah. We, to Wayne, thank you. To the committee, thank you. I mean, we're doing this before that morning when everything comes down, but it's just, you make Christmas abundant. You don't just make it just in time, you make it abundant, and it's an abundance for the whole community and all the other agencies. It was Jane's Woman of Distinction Award.
Yeah, actually, that's true.
It was at that moment that Business Cares got its vision and got started. So I think it's a wonderful thing to build on your legacy too, Jane, that you have done there. If that had not happened, we would not have had that meeting, and it likely would not have worked out. But at that meeting, Ed and I had a really good chance to have a good talk about it, and it really blossomed from there. So that's just another way that your award has kept giving to the food bank, and it goes on and on. It's a wonderful thing, and we really appreciate Jane and what she's done. But this is about Business Cares, of course. Yeah. And it'll be rarely, and we might not ever see the kind of volunteerism that comes into the food bank as it does over the month of December every year with Business Cares, because we have no idea how many people are helping out at these businesses and doing.
Yeah.
We have no idea. It's hundreds and hundreds. It could be thousands.
Yeah.
We don't know. We've got a rough idea of how many are down at the food bank, and on our database 3,000. But once these people get involved, the whole community comes alive. That's about ready to happen. That's why Jane's wearing her Christmas hat. But we're really excited, and I think again, thanks to Jane for making all of those kind of things possible. But we're ready. And we know there's great needs out there, but Business Cares will help us to meet those needs, and we appreciate it.